I'm Rebecca Downs, original music artist from Birmingham, UK. Welcome to Series 3 of my podcast, Downs Your Way, in association with Blues in Britain magazine. For further details of me, the magazine, or my guests, please follow show notes below. In Series 2, I took a look at the state of the UK grassroots blues rock scene in discussion with some of my fellow artists. Now, 2 years on, I'm returning to the same ground to look at the current state of play. My hypothesis, based on my own experience and from what I hear from others, is that things have gotten a lot worse. So the plan is to test this in discussion with some artists, managers and others from around the scene who I know have strong views on the issues that we face. Join us as we lift the bonnet and look at the engine of our scene to assess how well it's running. If you ever wanted to know what artists discuss when we're backstage, well, at the moment the conversation is usually based around what the podcast covers. We're not having a moan, we're just talking honestly. I hope you find it interesting. In this second episode, I'm talking to Mark Ede, probably best known for his role as being manager of Jo Harman, but also promoter and owner of the Big I Am boutique music agency. Mark has a reputation for a certain outspoken honesty in his social media posts, which he brands as the blind leading the blonde. In this series, I'm keen to hear the perspective of those involved who are not artists, and Mark is the first of his guests who are not performers, but heavily involved in all aspects of the business. Here we go. So, hello. Today we have another great guest on the podcast for the second season with Blues in Britain. And he's somebody that I've been kind of pointed to because he's quite outspoken on Facebook in general. And I just kind of aligned with a lot of what he was saying. So we were messaging and moaning and swearing. So, do you want to introduce yourself? Lovely. This is Mark Ede. Mark Ede, tell us about yourself.
Oh, crikey. Well, I'm the only person that I've never heard of, really. But yeah, oh gosh, I'm a music fan. I've always been a music fan, and that 16, 17-year-old enthusiasm for music has never left me, which is a blessing and a curse all at the same time, I guess. And about 20, or probably 20, 25 years ago. Yeah, so I've always been involved in music, like radio shows or putting on gigs when I was in corporate world. But it was about 20 years ago, I left the corporate world and found myself pretty much full time in music. And I suppose I do everything. I get involved in everything except perform, which is a blessing for the world and its wife, because you really wouldn't want to hear me sing or play. But so that really covers. I do promote some gigs just because I want to and can. I run a very small agency of a certain brand, I guess. And my main thing was managing Jo Harman, who I've met at an open mic basically, and 13 years ago now or something like that. And she's sort of formed a decent career internationally, very much on her own terms. And other things like that, really.
I mean, you've been quite modest there, which is not in keeping with your brand, but
I'm going to tell you a story about that in a minute, but I'll let you continue. Yeah.
No, I just no, you've done a lot. Definitely done a lot in this scene, and obviously you've taken somebody from, as you say, an open mic night and taken them all the way through to an established career. So you've worked with loads and loads of different artists, you know. So
yeah, I have to say it's much more to do with her talent than it is to do with any of my skills. But yeah, I've been on a nice journey, and I think as part of that journey, you make a lot of mistakes, but you learn a lot and you make a lot of connections. And when Jo really went, I mean, she's still out there working a lot actually, and in different projects. But when she had her first child, and now she's got twins, 2-year-old twins and a 5-year-old, it was like, well, we've made all these contacts on the way up, as it were. We sort of know most people in the scene, so it would be a shame not to use those to help other people. So anyway, but
Well, that makes sense. That does make sense. I mean, why we sort of started messaging. Obviously, we've spoken and we've met at a couple of festivals and all the rest of it. And I know that you'd had some correspondence with my manager Colin,
yeah,
along similar lines as what we're going to talk about tonight. But that's why I was kind of drawn to asking you sort of some further questions and getting your opinions on the industry at the present time. Obviously, it's more relative to the scenes that we operate in. It's not like
yeah.
it's not the entire industry, which is huge. But so starting off, how would you describe the current landscape for grass music artists that you deal with? What's it like in
I think I would
comparison
describe,
to like
yeah, I
when you
think I would
started?
describe it as increasingly difficult. And the reason I say that, and I don't want to reference Joe too much because, but that's my kind of reference points. And I would say that when we started, albeit from scratch, say probably 2011, really. So what's that, 13, 14 years ago?
Mm,
It wasn't easy, right? It definitely wasn't easy, but it was easier. And the reason I say that is because across almost every single part of the landscape, people would buy more physical merch for a start. So you had an income stream that you has diminished hugely now through physical sales. There was more of a pathway back then. If you were going out and making an impression and being obviously good, you would find that even though the record industry days of signing you for 100 grand have kind of gone by then, it was still there was still enough of the old school industry who would help you. So, for example, people like Leo Green at Live Nation,
mm,
he wouldn't want to sign Jo to be a Live Nation artist, but he liked her, so he'd put her on festivals, which
mm,
in turn would then bring her to the attention of other festival owners, bring her in invisible to European festivals. You could build a stepping stone up, and and also you could license records then. So we had a fantastic deal with V2 in Europe who, okay, they took the bulk of the money, but fair enough. They got her on telly. They got her in the local Benelux charts, like mainstream charts. And we could sign a 5-year deal at the end of that 5 year, which goes quite quickly. All those rights come back to us.
wow.
So they helped us build an audience, and they've helped her to become, almost a mainstream artist. And if you're smart enough and cute enough to understand how that all works, and my brother was an A&R guy in the 90s, so I kind of understood the record company perspective. They're not ripping you off. They're kind of like, you can either in life, you get things happen. You can either see the opportunities in that, or you can see the downside.
Yeah.
And you need to see the downside, but you also need to look at a bigger picture, and there's a lot of opportunities. Anyway, my point is, all of those things I've mentioned, there are lots of other things as well that I could mention, are no longer really available, or
Mm,
certainly not in the way they were then.
mm,
So, plus you've got an absolute saturation of people some of whom can play and sing about as well as I can, which is, trust me, not great. And bless them, good luck to them. It's democratized, art and people expressing themselves.
sure.
But the problem is it's blocking up the airwaves, as it were, or the gig opportunities for people who are a bit more kind of professional and better. Added to that, so it's all sounds about doom and gloom. We're almost got into a kind of McDonald's culture with music generally. I mean, you compare. I mean, I'm a lot older than you, but I grew up the Beatles and Jimi Hendrix and prog rock and uh,
Mm,
Led Zeppelin, all these vast kind of brilliant, clever, exciting, innovative music. And now you listen to Radio 1 and Radio 2, well, I could write those songs. You know, they're nursery rhymes to the same four chords. So music has become less of a important thing to a lot of people. And that's a generalization, which is any generalization is flawed by the fact it's a generalization, but it's still a truism, I think.
Yeah.
So you've got all these things kind of counting against you. You've got AI's coming, you've got to flood the market even more. So yeah, Jo's had a lot of success, particularly when you consider she's done it very much on her own terms. She's not got, you know, she hasn't knocked herself out in any shape or form, and she's more interested in being a successful human being than being a successful music artist. But be very hard to replicate that now, however good you are.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. Um, do you think, because I mean, you spoke a little bit there about, about the balance between the remuneration of one of the deals that she signed, and so we're just sort of thinking about that kind of, there was an investment on your and her part of time and investment from that record company in some money into getting her onto different things and all the rest of it. Now in today's world, as you've rightly said, that kind of doesn't exist anymore. So there's definitely a financial barrier. And do you think that has a bearing on what the point you've just made about the market being flooded? Because obviously the democratization of music with streaming and all the rest of it, and everyone having Logic on their MacBooks and being able to record and what have you. But a lot of the time, that's just going to sit and go nowhere. The only time that somebody can look like they're rising above the parapet, and I'm going to use look like they're rising above the parapet, is if they put a lot of their own money behind it. I mean, is that something you've experienced? I mean, would you agree with that, or?
Yeah, and I mean, I'm a very kind of, I'm not an artist, all right, and that's one of the reasons why I'm outspoken. I don't mean to piss people off, but I have a different sensibility of what um of what the truth is, I suppose. And it's only more recently that I've realized, and I'm not putting anybody down. I kind of, it's my bad that I didn't really realize. Creative people are creative for a reason. They are a special breed, and I love them, right? So, but they have a different way of looking at things, often a very different way of viewing the world. They have different life skills. They have a different perception. And it took me a long time to really understand that, and hence my language, the way I express things that you would do in business or in other spheres of life, I can create problems. But anyway, I don't want to. I just park that out there for a minute. But on the other hand, I'm a business person. I'm an entrepreneur, and I also, much as I love, and this is what I love as a music fan, is somebody who just sits at the piano. Their dad has died, or they've had a terrible breakup, or they've got some mental health issues or some childhood issues, and they sit at the piano, and it's a healing process, and they make this beautiful music, right? That's what I love, right? But the business part of me goes, that's never going to be enough, right? So I don't want to name names because some people misconstrue that I'm putting them down. I'm not trying to put them down at all. And I admire what they do. But you also get other people who perhaps aren't that artist, right? They want to be an entertainer, and they're good at what they do, but they have got that business sensibility to know that any business you do, any project you do requires investment. And so they will find a way through, if they're workaholics and they're really driven and they're really persistent and they know how to fill out forms to get grants, or they've got access to bank loans or money at some level, and they've got certain advantages that a lot of great artists haven't got, but also they create those advantages themselves. So I'm not, it's not about knocking them. But they will be smart enough to go, right, I'm going to go to Nashville. I'm going to work with the best writers. I'm going to work with the best producers and they've got the money to do it, they will invest all their time, their money, any money they make to get to the next level, to next level, to next level. So they have to do the job that the record labels used to do, right? Or the managers do, or the publicists would do, and they create teams around them. And those people actually, on the one hand, I go, oh, that's not really what it's about, is it? And on the other hand, I go, fair play to them. You know,
Yeah.
like that, if they understand what you need to do to even approach to try and do this, and they're very good at social media, they're very good at networking, they're very good at building communities, and good luck, like good luck to them. They're like, we should be following that example in many ways. But I think what it does, and I don't want to get too deep into the mental health issues and why creatives are a special breed. It makes everyone else feel like a failure, and
I
that's
think,
dangerous.
yeah, I think you're exactly right. I mean, on a little voyage of discovery, although this is not about me, this podcast series, but makes very good sense that I've been diagnosed with ADHD recently.
Hmm.
And having had a lot of sort of issues all the way through my life, and music has been that anchor. And it's not been about, oh, I want to be famous or I want to, it's never been
Yeah,
about that. I was discussing this with a colleague of mine recently, and we both came from the same standpoint that we started music because we had to,
yeah.
because there was no other way. uh, we're still writing music now all the time because we have to, because it's there, because
Mm.
the songs are in your head, so you just put
Mm.
them down. And that is a completely different perspective to an awful lot of artists, and also because I teach at a couple of institutions, music institutions. We are trying to, which I think is a good thing to do, get a balance so that people do realize what is involved,
Yeah.
to try
Uh,
and bridge
yeah.
the gap somehow that I wasn't aware to bridge on many levels. And I probably couldn't have bridged with my personality anyway.
Yeah, and going, I mean, I listened to something actually by John Cleese was talking to Rob Brydon, and I wish I might actually dig it out and do a little blind leading the blonde piece on it, and like, like I'm learning about this. I'm learning about this almost daily, and the more artists I work with, without, I don't want to go into their, I don't want to make people worry about the, sort of make this about individuals. But I think, that they are all the artists that I'm drawn to and the artists that I work with, they come from they come from that place.
Mm.
And to expect people, they're not going to be actuaries and accountants, as John Cleese put it. He said he talked because he does a lot of psychiatry as well as, comedy, but he was saying, that they have to have that space to play, because if you
Mm.
haven't got that space to play in their heads, they're not going to do, then they're not going to express themselves. They're not going to do this thing called art. And so they have to be, and he doesn't say it like this, and I'm paraphrasing really clumsily here, but almost childlike, to be able to have that kind of thing. And so to expect them to have the life skills, or expect them to operate with the same kind of logic or the same kind of perspective as us civilians do, is kind of a bit naive and stupid on our part.
You,
And and that's, I'm guilty of that. I'm only kind of learning really the depth of what these creatives, of what being a creative is why Mozart died, penniless, and whatever. It's a different thing.
it is
Um,
it is a different thing, and I think you've used a great term there, civilians. That my friend, who sadly is no longer, but he was the guitarist in the Steve Gibbons band, and he used to say, "Oh, Becky, they're civilians. They don't understand."
yeah.
So I'm glad you used that phrase. But I think as well, and I know Colin struggles with this with me, and because obviously, as the person that co writes the songs, I am emotionally attached.
Hmm.
I have an emotional involvement,
Mm.
and I can't separate me from the songs.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
obviously, a manager can, and they can separate you from the product. And I think that's as well a real issue because we can't. We come from different emotional standpoints, don't we?
We do, we do. And that's not to say that I can't be, but yeah, we absolutely do. And that's the yin and yang. And it took me a long time to understand that if you replace the word difficult with vulnerable, you things get a lot easier, right?
Yeah,
And so what me as a business person or a person, a civilian, because I'm a civilian, um, will think is logical. A creative may not think that's logical, or they may have real. Well, what I would think is illogical for them, it's not illogical. They have real reasons why they don't want to do that, and even if it's to detriment of their career or the detriment to whatever, if it makes no sense at all. And I get this constantly, like, why, what? They're self-sabotaging almost, but until you understand it from their perspective and really dig in without being too intrusive. They don't want you to be intrusive, but to try and really understand that. And it's a vulnerability often. It's not because they're divas or they're difficult. They're just vulnerable and
yeah,
put themselves in that spotlight or this thing or that thing, or it makes them feel even more uncomfortable. So, this is something that I'm still learning, but I've learned more recently, because it's such a common theme across so many of the artists that I now work with. And
yeah,
and and it's no coincidence that I'm attracted to them, because they are so authentic and sincere, and their music and their expression and their lyrics is just so beautiful. They're like, there's a beautiful hurt in them, actually, that they're getting out, and that's what makes it art rather than commerce for me. But then I have to try and marry those two things together.
yeah. And that is, the difficult job, isn't it? But I think, yeah, absolutely. I can absolutely say as well the things that I have self-sabotage, that people would see it as self-sabotage.
Mm.
Um, I, some people would see me as a good networker. I'm not a good networker at
Mm.
all. Put me into a room full of people, I, my head's exploding.
Yeah.
It's not other, and so there's many opportunities I've been invited to over the years of creating this particular band that I just couldn't attend and I couldn't engage with because I knew it would be too much. I would be
Mm.
overwhelmed, and I'm sure people think, oh, she's too snobby. She thinks too much of herself. She
Mm.
can't. It's not that at all. I don't
Mm.
think enough of myself. I can't operate in that environment. I could. Colin could, but I can't. No way in a million years.
Yeah,
Not
and
possible.
yeah, yeah. Funny enough, I got Jade McRae here. She's gone to the pub, but she's from America. She's in Joe Bonamassa's band. She's staying here this week, and I didn't know her before, but we've had some really, you know, interesting conversations, and um, yeah, I mean, it's like, and she was saying, like, she had like a 5 minutes of fame and in the pop world in Australia, and
Mm.
it's very destabilizing. It's very so you either feel you're not worthy enough, and you're no, I'm not talking about her, by the way. I'm just
No,
saying,
no, no.
yeah. But I think that the danger is that you feel a failure because you're not doing what person X is achieving, irrespective of their talent, but they're
Yeah,
achieving it through a different means, and you shouldn't. It's like comparing apples and oranges. They're not the same animal, right? Or the same fruit.
absolutely.
Or you get escalated up into this thing where you're no longer grounded. And people always say, yes, it treat you differently. Your friends treat you differently. Everything's just different. So to actually stay in that space of comfort and sensibility and groundedness is so tough.
Yeah,
Tough. And it's why, and again, without naming names, why some platinum selling artists I know had nervous breakdowns when they made it big. Be careful what you wish for, because your life's not your own. Because one minute you're just um, Pam in Neasden, going down the local shops, having your life, having a boyfriend or whatever. Next minute, and the record companies are very well-meaning, but your agents on the phone or your promoters on the phone or record companies, you got to be in Switzerland tomorrow, then you got to go to Australia, and then you got to promote the record in Canada. Your life is just turned upside down.
Yeah.
And everyone, and you're suddenly gone from, and you're in these hotel suites, and it's people are treating you different. It's such a head fuck. So
Mm.
you can't. I think you artists can't really win. It's really tough.
Not really, I don't think. Not really.
You
I,
know, it's dangerous. It's dangerous at so many levels.
I
And
mean, it really is.
yeah,
It
yeah,
really is. And I mean, obviously, there's loads of examples from the industry at large. I've also got a lot of examples of students that I've worked with that have been signed by major management
yeah,
labels, major
yeah.
management labels. And I've seen how it's affected them, even though we've tried to keep them.
Mm. Well, if it happens when you're young, I mean, some of these people I'm talking about happen to them in their 30s, and they should be a bit more grounded. But when you're young, that will define your rest of your life, and why that.
Yeah,
I don't know who it was. Somebody from one major band took his life, jumped out a balcony. I mean, that's why these things, like Amy Winehouse or these 27 Club. That's why.
yeah.
I mean, yes, they've got childhood issues for sure, because they probably wouldn't be artists in the first place, but it's just exacerbated. Anyway, I don't want to be too doom and gloom, but
No, no,
it's
not at all.
important. It's important that people realize you're talking about a very discomforting environment, whether you're getting nowhere or whether you're getting somewhere. it's it's going to be tough. There are challenges that normal civilians don't have to face in their lives.
I think that's really true. And I know Colin talks about that a lot, having had a really successful career in business and saying that none of what he was involved
Mm,
in any of his business career
mm,
even came close to the demands he thinks is on me.
yeah,
I
yeah,
mean, and that's crazy because this wasn't just small businesses.
no,
And I think going on from what you said, it's the way that the democratization has taken place
mm,
and on the way that it's evolved gives way for more comparison between artists. So the Spotify figures,
mm,
the social media figures,
mm,
the industry that's been created to enhance all those
mm,
statistics.
mm.
And I've said this a lot, and I know a lot of people, sort of punters, don't really realize it, but you can boost all these. And I'm not knocking any artist that does. I understand the place that comes from,
Yeah,
that nervous, that desperation, that, well, if everyone's doing it, I've got to do it as well, right? Because
yeah.
everyone's
Well,
inflating
I
their,
mean,
yeah, like,
yeah, I mean, I've never done it, and
I've never done it.
I never would do it. But you can understand why business people might go, "Oh, well, if that's the code, that's what we need to do. Let's do
Let's
it."
do it.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, I was talking to somebody recently who is a music industry
mm,
professional who went, "Yeah, you just got to do it. Just buy some Spotify plays and just." And I was like, "No, no, 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 no! Like, I'm not a massive brain on this at all, but I work alongside somebody that is, and he would tell you that's going to destroy all your natural organic reach
yeah.
on
It's
all the platforms."
Well, also, I think people are wising up in like all this kind. I've been guilty. We've all. Not, I don't
Yeah,
mean getting Spotify, but we've all been like, my mantra when I started working with Joe was like, right, Joe, we're going to position ourselves as two places bigger than we are because it'll become self-fulfilling, right? So you can't. I mean, you don't lie, but I'm a PR guy, so you put a spotlight on the good stuff, right?
mm.
And in those days, it would happen. Now people are just, it's just, and I can understand why they do it, but it's honestly, if you read the posts and the mock humility and the, oh my God, oh, Paul, like, oh Cardiff, you're amazing tonight, and all this, like, and it's like, and I think people are seeing through it now. And I think people are realizing that actually truth and honesty is a lot more powerful. And I think one of the antidotes to all this we've been talking about is getting artists together, doing what you're doing, having these conversations in the open. And I've got a small roster of quite elite singers who do really well as vocalists as well as artists. And they get a lot of it's not like a self-help group, or they're not, but they get a lot of comfort, I think. Well, I'd like to think
Mm.
from being much more honest and open with themselves and sharing this stuff and just being cooler. I mean, just
Yeah.
be cool, you
Yeah.
know? And it's almost like, well, and I think, and I think those who, there's almost like a strategy now, which is like make yourself less available. People will come hunting to find you. I know it's a big risk because everybody's shouting, but there's so much noise that you might as well just go, isn't you might as well almost go the other way. Um, am I making any sense?
No, you absolutely are making sense. Yeah, 100%. I think so. I mean, would that be a strategy that you would use? And if we're going to talk about your strategies to sort of grow an artist without any major label support, is that one of the strategies that you may use? Like
Well,
sit back a little bit more, like don't go all crazy.
yeah. Well, I mean, I'm very, very influenced by not only Jo Harman's attitude, but actually, I mean, Jade McRae, who's a fucking killer, man. I mean, I've never seen anything like it. I've seen Aretha live, and she's like, fuck, right? I mean, she's amazing. I mean, really amazing. And obviously, you don't get to be in Joe Bonamassa's band for 10 years unless you're amazing. He can have any singer he wants. But that's what I need to be careful where I'm going with this. But she is so chilled. And I
Mm,
think she's like, hey, it's yeah, I mean, I take my career seriously. I take music seriously. I love music, but it doesn't define who I am. I'm Jade McRae. I mean, her parents were music, so it's not like music's almost overwhelmed her whole existence. But
mm,
she's I mean, I shouldn't really talk about her, almost. But my perception, rightly or wrongly, is that she's a very, very grounded individual, and her approach is, hey. Um, I ain't going to knock myself out to have a solo career in Europe,
mm,
right? I just ain't going to do it. But if opportunities come along and it fits in with what I'm doing, and of course I'm not going to turn down. But everything I do, I'm going to do because I want to do it. It's
mm,
not for an end game. Jo Harman is very much in that situation. I mean, obviously she's a mum; she hasn't got much choice. But it's funny when she turned 40. I hope she doesn't mind me saying this. And when she put on changed her size and shape because of the kids and stopped gigging, it actually boosted her price in the market. Yeah,
mm,
right, because it was like, well, actually, not too many Jo Harmons around. Okay, so in other words, take it, and it wasn't that we deliberately did it, but the strategy has been, well, if you can't pay X, which is quite a lot of money, you won't get Joe because you can't do it, or it costs
mm,
a lot of money to do it, and so not everyone's in that position because you've got to have a certain cash and you've got to have a certain maybe a thing that people want. There's not too many kind of do what Joe does like vocally, so she'll always get offers and stuff. So, but my point is, stop knocking yourselves out, guys,
mm,
because actually, and also, just sorry, Joe, forgive me if you ever watch this, but it's almost like now we're saying, listen, you've done this, you've done that, and Jade's played to, she's been on TV to millions of people. She said, I've
mm,
done all that shit, right? But what's important to me is to make a record that I really want my kids. Or Jade doesn't say that, she hasn't got children, but Joe would say, I want to make a record my kids are proud of,
mm,
part of me. And I want to play a show where I like the band, I like the venue, I like, artistically it pushes my buttons. Or and she loves doing the Van Morrison alumni thing. She loves working with those guys, working with Leo, and it's a lot easier for her. She hasn't got to lead the band. So it's almost like I'm just doing what I want. I'm doing
mm,
it on my terms. And frankly, whether she was or whether she wasn't, she'd probably be in the same place. So, and you don't, so the advice I would give to somebody, and I do, if somebody comes to me for consult, I say, so what are you in it for? Are you in it for, and I don't mean it, well, I'm shortening it, right? But are you in it for the fame? Do you want to entertain people? Do you want to make money? Do you need to do it? So you've got to find out why you're doing it. And as far as I'm concerned, it's all legitimate, right? It's all legitimate, but then you shape your career accordingly.
mm,
But if you're not sure, make music that you want to make, when you want to make it, do it for yourself. If other
Mm,
people dig it, great. But
mm.
that's, if you stick to that and nothing else, when you get to my age, at least you'll be proud of yourself. I don't mean you personally, but I'm talking about people
No,
generally.
I think that's a really good point to make.
And don't fall into that trap of comparisons,
Mm.
because like my partner Linda loves fine dining. I like McDonald's. I'm the worst eater in the world, right? A lot of people consume McDonald's. A lot of people consume music in that McDonald's culture. So
Mm.
if you're a fine diner artist or you're a real artist, comparing yourself to what person A is or band B are doing, or pop stars are doing, that's a false comparison. So don't get hung up about how much further they are, or how much more listeners they've got, or how many radio, it's a false comparison.
Absolutely. And I think from a songwriter's perspective, when I first started writing songs, when I was about 11 on the guitar,
Mm.
my objective was I really want to write a song I'm proud of. And I
Yeah.
say to my students, that objective's never changed.
Mm.
I still want to write songs I'm proud of.
Mm.
Some you're more proud of than others, aren't you? But the objectives never changed. The objective was never, I want to be famous. It always came from that, I want to write a song I'm proud of. Be great if someone else liked it as well. But
Yeah. Yeah.
because you've got to, I absolutely agree, and Colin agrees with this, establish what you want as well. What's going to
But
make you
also,
happy?
yeah, and also understand to unravel that onion of bullshit, basically, and don't get in that competitive mode. It's not healthy. And a lot of other businesses, or in sport, I'm a big sportsman, it is healthy to compare, and because you're basically, you are all apples, you're all so if I don't get the runs and somebody else gets the runs, they're going to take my place, and that's fair enough. But
Mm,
in the music industry, it's a there's a difference between artists and entertainers for a start, right?
absolutely.
There's a difference between people who have got the means and the business brain and the finances and the resources to go a long way. There are other people who, frankly, haven't got those skills to do that, but they are great artists. So, and the world we live in is devaluing the relationship between the fan and the music, except for the few fine diners or people like me who are old dinosaurs and some youngsters. But that's just how it is. It's like the cart and the horse is overtaken by the cart. So it's really, really dangerous to fall into all those traps, including social media. And people are getting mental health issues as a result of it. It's not healthy.
Absolutely. The MMF Music Managers Forum and a lot of other mental health charities that I speak to are consistently now talking about social media burnout,
Mm.
which I'm totally not surprised at. Um, the advice coming out to launch new artists, new acts is like something like 30 reels a week, short
Mm.
form reels a week, and that can be done, and it also can't be done for to
But
different
but but
degrees relating to the person involved, and the finance and the time that they have.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm probably wrong, right? And so, and I'm happy to be put right, but I don't think it makes it too much difference.
I
I think they're all working your nuts off for something that's not actually, I mean, my advice would be, but I don't know much about Joe Bonamassa. I probably learn a bit more from Jade, but like, I know he had the resource to do it, but he was like, well, I'm just going to hire the place. I'm going to do my own ticketing, just to have it as a DIY thing, and then just try and grow it. And I think, uh, like Jade played here in a little room above a pub as a favor, really, or just something to do. Um, and she was like, you know, it's like, wow, this is really, really lovely to play. Does I mean, it was a bit more than 30 people, but they're all crammed in this little tiny room, and her and Stevie Watts on piano, and it's like, so I don't know. I mean, you can sometimes get more out of that than you can playing. I remember when Joe played the O2 Arena, and I was like all excited, getting the champagne. All right, we've made it to the O2 Arena, albeit on a festival. It wasn't 22,000 people weren't paying to see Jo Harman, trust me. But the fact that she was on the bill, um, and she was like, whatever. It was like playing to big school hall. It wasn't a big moment for her in her life at all.
Mm.
It's, so, and I don't know why I say that, but I just think people are aiming for things that are just actually a bit of an anticlimax
Yeah,
sometimes.
I think it also I think it's different when I think the age of the demographic that you're aiming at. I know we're kind of all aiming at
Mm.
everyone in a way, but
Mm.
we all have that. There's a different demographic, to every particular
Mm.
artist. And I think the younger ones that I deal with, it does work. That consistency does work because I think that the demographic that they're aiming at, that's
Mm.
how they locate and find new music. I don't think necessarily that that's gonna help an artist
No,
to get a different demographic.
you make a very good distinction. Sorry, I was talking really about, even though these artists are in their 30s and 40s, they're still their fan base is more my age or
Yes.
whatever. So yes, it's not going to make much difference to those. So that I was talking in that context. For young people, I don't pretend to understand how young people do it. I don't pretend to understand how to break an artist on TikTok, and I'm sure of that there are people who do, and good luck to them. I don't even pretend to understand that. So I'm not. But I think for the sort of, for more our audience, our community, be that rock, blues, Americana, jazz,
Yeah.
soul, whatever.
It is a different.
It's like you're trying to knock yourself out with doing all these things you're supposed to do, and it does work at some level. It will bring 2% more to people who've got everything. Like they've got radio campaign, they've got their own
Mm.
photographer, they've got their own digital marketer. And those are the business people I'm talking about earlier who are just kind of, we're going to get there no matter what. We've got the resources to do it. Yes, they will do all of that, and it will probably incrementally help because they've got everything else in place. But for most people, you got to work smart as well as working hard. And I don't think that's a good use of your time. You better to go down the pub or sit in the garden and write a lovely song or sunbathe. I just think, you got to have basics. You got to have a website.
Mm.
You got to have a social media presence of some level, but you don't need to compete with all that, all those things you're talking about. I don't think, but I might be wrong.
No, well, no, I agree, and I think it is sort of related to the genre and the demographic that you're aiming at, without a doubt. Um, I think you spoke a little bit about sort of we spoke a little bit about the finance kind of side of things, on a sort of peripheral level, and the streaming sort of side of it has completely, well, it's democratized the industry, but it's done a lot of other things as well. One of those is to maybe devalue, and you talked a little bit about the consumption of music and the plethora of music that's out there. Um,
I'll tell you my story, which is really an old man dinosaur story. Like when I was young, like sort of late Beatles or maybe a bit after that, 70s. Like if I wanted, like I remember Stevie Wonder, right? Stevie Wonder put out Hotter in July 1976. And I was working in town then. I used to go to the record shop every day and go, is that record in yet? No. So I'd order it, right? Every day I'd go in. I had to wait 3 weeks for Hotter Than July to kind of come out, right? So the excitement that would build, and investment between you and this would just build as a pure, then, I'd have to get it. Oh, I'm in the office. I can't, no record player. So, and on the back, it would tell you who the engineer was, who the bass player was. I'd know the names. I'd invested in this fucking record before I'd ever heard a note of music. Then you take it home, you get your record player out, you put 20 minutes, you sit there, no distractions, you listen to it, right? You listen to the whole 20 minutes. You turn it over to you do that 5 times, right? You heard the album 5 times before you even decided whether you liked it or not, right? You really took a deep dive into that record. And by the way, I loved it, right? But you know what I mean? And
yeah,
so that relationship between the consumer and the product is deep. Now it's
yes,
paper thin. We can't, kids and even me, I'm guilty of it now. I'm kind of like listening to music on TikTok or oh, somebody's put a 20 seconds of a band I like, Conley Hayes, I mean, oh, okay, oh, they've done the Bobby Womack tune. Oh, yeah, that's cool. It's just that's how I listen to it now, which is terrible. And no one really cares about the production values. Jo Harman's Spotify stuff, I'm embarrassed, right, by the top 10 stuff. And she's got millions and millions of fucking streams. I'm going, that's not Jo Harman. That's just the blues rock live albums that we put out for a bit of fun. And algorithms kind of reward you for lowest. It's a race to the bottom.
Yeah.
So yeah, anyway, I sound like an old cynical
No,
dinosaur,
no,
but it's still true. It's still true.
you're right though, because the relationship between the listener and the music has changed. And
Mm.
yeah, coming from a similar place, getting CDs and sitting at home and reading the lyrics
Yeah,
as I
trying to on those little CDs, but yeah, still reading
and
them.
and even reading the thank you notes,
Yeah,
literally devouring it,
yeah.
and there being such an expensive nature to the
Well, sorry, I sorry to
products.
interrupt you, but the other point is, how are any of us going to make any money when you've gone from that, where you had to buy a record to even listen to any of it, to now for £10, what, for free, because you can get Spotify for free. Okay, you got some certain
And
hoops.
YouTube.
And YouTube, exactly, exactly.
YouTube's worse.
Yeah, you totally will. So you can listen to any song of 100 million songs. It's going to exponentiate beyond that for free. So
Yeah.
in what world of business does that model ever gonna work? It's not going to work. Whereas go back to CDs and vinyls, you had to pay to listen to the music, and because it's like air or water. I know we pay for it at one level or another, but it's like we don't. If something's rare, like gold or champagne or minerals, if something's hard to get, you value it more. If it's
Absolutely.
omnipresent, you don't value it.
Yeah. And something, that's been said to me often, if somebody doesn't pay for anything for it, the value of it just goes down. And I saw that recently coming back from a gig and
Mm,
looking at WH Smith's in the service station, and there was every magazine under the sun. There's probably 200 plus
mm,
magazines there. Some on tractors, some on,
mhm. Yeah,
not one music magazine.
yeah.
Not the one. And that just shows the relationship between when the price of something goes to nothing, the
Mm,
value and the interest goes with it.
exactly.
And that I think that's I mean, going on from that, I mean, I saw my friend Johnny Amos, who's like an industry expert today, talking about there's some new platforms coming
Mhm,
online, or they've already come online. I haven't
mhm,
read everything he's said yet. That to me sounds similar to a Bandcamp situation
mhm.
where somebody is basically paying the money directly to the artist. Do you think anything because everything's changed so much? I mean, like artists can't really make money anymore out of music, basically become t-shirt sellers. So if we're lucky, and we appreciate people buying the t-shirts, not gonna, it's bloody amazing.
Yeah,
But do you
I'm
think
trying
a
to think of some
platform like that would work or not?
possibly. I think it's also having said all I've said, it's also a mistake to assume that there aren't people who want the fine dining music experience. So one of so I'm trying to think of some positives, right? So one of the positives that work, I mean, well, there are two things. I mean, yeah, obviously, this doesn't. You got to filter out whether this applies to you, as in, an artist out there, not you necessarily. Is you can stop working hard, stop having ambitions, stop doing these things, and things can either remain the same or get better.
Mm,
That can happen, right? So maybe just try that for a bit. The second thing is there are 70 million people in this country, right? 70 million. A lot of them, I can't remember the exact, but certainly 10 million upwards probably are my age, right? And a good proportion of those are music fans. A little hack that I discovered by accident. I mean, it costs at least £1,000 to make a decent track, at least that. How are you ever going to get that money back? You never am, right? It's just like you look at the logic of it. If you was a business guru from Harvard, to understand music, came and looked at it, and go, well, why were you doing that? You never get the money back for that, right? Unless unless you're whoever the Britney, whoever the latest Britney Spears is or whatever. That's me. That's dating me by 30 years, by the way. But um, but one of the things that we've always done, and we did this in lockdown, and we did it as a customer service. Honestly, it wasn't a kind of is that we would make CD singles, and I wish I had some here to show you. I have actually. Hang on.
And as if by
Oh,
magic.
oh, yeah, no, sorry. I thought it was in the CD player, but I just there's a firm in Brighton called Copy Dog, and they will do you 5 copies or 500, whatever number of copies you want for about £1 a time.
Mm.
I've given away all my state secrets here, but anyway, but and I just get an on-body print. If you send him a file of what you want on there. Anyway, cut long story short, and I send those out. And what I do, I have the one main track, which is properly produced, and it's like the single. Then I have a couple of other tracks on there, which are either live recordings or demos or anything that we've all got as art on our computers,
Mm.
but are not otherwise available to people. And I sell those for £8, right,
Mm.
including postage. The postage is second class post because it's so thin. You just put it in an envelope and send it like a card or postcard.
Yeah.
And only if you only sell 200 of those. And obviously, I've got big mailing lists for Joe. But for the people who really want that, they are existing fans. They're not for good for new fans particularly, but they won't mind that Joe is singing a demo, recording in their bedroom. In fact, they love it. They love it. It's a fly on the wall thing. Um, and it's not, and Joe doesn't mind because Joe's going, well, they know that I can make proper fuck off records. So they're just getting the behind the scenes bit. And you sell a couple of hundred of those, £8 a time. It's not all profit. Say you make £5 on them.
Mm.
I mean, it's hard work and I love. I mean, Joe does none of this. It's all me, right? So, but I write all these things out by hand. I mean, I could do them by print. But I love that relationship between me and Joe's fans. Because they've been with us for 10, 15 years, and it's very relaxing for me to sit in the sun and just write these addresses out by hand, put a stamp on it, and put it in the thing. So sometimes you've got to think out the box a little bit. The other thing we did, 10-year anniversary of a debut album, which cost us £2,000 to make that debut album, right? I mean, we really recouped on that. And that was the one that V2 picked up, blah, 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 and got in the charts and all that. So 10-year anniversary, I'm very lucky. I've got Mark Wilkinson in the village who does all the Iron Maiden box sets. He works for Iron Maiden, Judas Priest, all that rock stuff. He's a famous album artist. He said, why don't you do a box set of Jo Harman's a debut album, £100 a box, right? Okay, £100. Who's gonna? They might pay it for Iron Maiden. They can pay £100 to get a box from Jo Harman. He said, "Well, just do 100, and we'll see." We sold all 100. That's £10,000, right? So you don't need. I mean, obviously that's not all profit. It was we did a book. We did. We spent a lot of money on it.
Yeah.
And so sometimes you can copy what the big boys do and do it on a much, much smaller scale, and it still works. So, I mean, they're just two small examples, but yeah, I mean, there are things beyond t-shirts, and if you've got a fan base who really are invested in your music, find a way of, it's not exploiting them, find a way of, I know what I would like as a fan. I love Hamish Stewart or Average White or Shaka Khan, whatever I like, and if I could get 100, if I could get a lovely box set that's one of 100 from, or an artist that no one's heard of, maybe Lewis Taylor or something. I'd fucking love that. And also, people our age, some of us are quite wealthy or have disposable income, and our partners and wives will go, oh, he's like I mean, Mark himself, who does all the Iron Maiden stuff, he buys. He's still a music fan, so he buys Caravans box set or Prog, whatever he likes, and he's bought them all, because and or his wife has gone, oh, I don't want to get him for a Christmas or birthday. Oh, I'll get him like what a soft machine. I better get him the new soft machine box set or something. You know what I mean? So there are people who are still around because there's a lot of us. You know, we're an aging population who will still, you know, like, I know your music is very rock based, but it's maybe, you know, they will, those rock fans are diehards, like and sometimes mirroring some of those things. I mean, I've been lucky that Mark's here, and I couldn't have done that by myself. And it's Mark Wilkinson, gives it a cachet and will sell anyway. But
It aligns with, there's a book called The Curve that talks about actually examples very similar to the one that you've given.
Mhm.
And I think, like, because I was going to ask about what kind of future you think the kind of, I hate to call it grassroots, but the grassroots music industry scene has. I think it's more predominantly going to be community based.
Yeah.
Um, and, the little fan group that I have, I'm not talking about the page or the Instagram page or anything like that.
Mhm.
It's the fan group somebody else created on Facebook that I've never added anyone to. They
Mhm.
just add themselves if they want to.
Mhm.
Those, however many it is on there, are the core. And the email subscribers are the
Mhm.
core. And they're at the heart of everything that me and Steve do because they are the ones that keep us going. And I think, I mean, I don't know about you, but I think it's kind of that's going to become even more prevalent going forward because of the amount of music that's out there.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. And community. I mean, like here, I live in this little village, like one horse village, and I started putting these music nights on just because I can, because I know I ring people up and go, come and just do this, and then like people who aren't massively music fans, but now they come every month because it's like they are enjoying the music. They find they really do enjoy the music. More at the point, it's like a social thing. Or, like someone like you said, you don't have to have a big, you don't have to have a big fan base. I remember when Joe, like we like we in the studio, we or somebody said, why don't we've got to record acoustic version, why don't we invite some people in and sit on the floor? And we only had about 25 people, but they came from Holland, they came from all over the place. And those 25 people, and I mean, it wasn't it wasn't like we were doing it just because it was a good business move. It was like, oh, okay, we get a bit of atmosphere in the studio. I mean, we did this like 13 years ago or something. And the people who came to that are our biggest ambassadors.
Mm.
And or having, so it's like these big things that do, like Joe Bonamassa has a cruise, right? And Prog. So you take all these big things, but scale them right down. Have six people around to your house or a neighbour's house, and have a house concert, or have a listening party to your new single or new LP. So I think that kind of engagement. And some artists are better than that than others. Some people are shy. Some people don't want to, aren't comfortable doing that. But I think there's always things you can do, and scale and size, the intimacy can really help to build, loyalty and all that kind of stuff. Again, does that make sense what I'm
It
saying?
totally makes sense. I mean, the favourite gigs of ours are we do some gigs. We don't necessarily call them acoustic, we call them stripped back
Yeah,
because nothing's really acoustic if it's plugged in. But
yeah,
those are probably becoming both mine and Steve's favourite gigs. So I
yeah.
can sit there, I can have a little chat to everyone over the mic, I can have a little chat, we can have a little laugh. They can laugh at my accent or trying to understand it. And then it is a real kind of symbiotic relationship and it is a lovely, happy, inviting environment, and there doesn't seem to be a distance, and
Well, yeah. Well, in
it's
Brighton,
great.
yeah. Well, in Brighton, I don't know why it happened or how it happened, but I was one of 25 people in a little record shop watching Beth Hart. I didn't know I mean, I knew who Beth Hart was. I'd never seen her before. And my God, I came out of there like Beth Hart's biggest fan because she was so lovely, so incredible, sitting at the piano, just playing those songs, pouring her heart out. And I saw her, like 3 months later at the Dome, and it was like, so what? There's a real power
Mm.
in, particularly with Anyway, there's a real power, and if she's doing it to 20 people for free, or you have to be on some list, I don't know how I
Mm,
got
mm.
it's like, well, it's good enough for her, it's good enough for us, right? You know what I mean? And funny enough, also the economics. I don't want to get too much into the economics, but if someone comes and stays with us and plays these things we put on once a month or now and again, they often can have more money from doing that to 20, 30 people than they would if they're playing to 500 people when they're about to get a train and pay the band and stay overnight and all that. So the economics can work really well, you know what I mean?
That's a really good point as well. It's a point that I would agree with. I think it's a point that a lot of artists would agree with, and obviously, the bigger the venue, the bigger the cost of everything. Um, and like Joe, it's you pay musicians,
Yeah.
it's not cheap. It's not a
Yeah.
cheap thing to do, and should never be a cheap thing to do because they're there. Because they're amazing, but it's not a one for all and all for one environment, so it is a lot more expensive for us.
Well, it is. And to be fair to the musicians, like the hours they have to work.
Absolutely.
And also the petrol cost, the hotel cost, going into Europe now. Like I was talking to Els Bailey, and she was saying, "Oh, again, I don't want to." She's talking privately to me, but I think we all know, even at that level, and certainly for Joe, we had some really big fees in Netherlands, but we still managed to make a loss somehow. I mean, it's really changed the cost of air travel and Brexit and all that, and then you add all that with the fact that you can't sell the merch you used to sell. You just go, well, do we do that next year? Probably not.
Yeah, Alan
So,
Nimmo
yeah,
spoke about exactly the same thing, making a loss on all
yeah,
his European dates. So,
yeah. And the other thing is really going back to like 13 years ago or a decade ago. You could. It wasn't easy. It's never been easy. I want to stress that it's never been easy, but it was easier. You could gig your way up. There was a
yeah.
pathway. You would do certain venues, then you would go to the next one, then you would go to the festivals, then you go into Europe and blah blah blah. I don't think that pathway is there anymore. I really don't. I feel sorry for even the really good bands. I don't think there's that pathway.
No, I think it's a combination of things, but I think Brexit definitely didn't help. Um, and it's
Everything's
I
flat
think
now.
lockdown, it
Yeah.
definitely didn't help. It changed people's perspectives. I know it changed a lot of the students' perspectives and their concentration spans in general. I think it changed everyone's concentration span, and it also made a lot of people realize that, oh well, we saved a lot of money actually staying in, and people got used to staying in. And I think we haven't really come out of that. We're still feeling the after effects of that, especially in the music industry.
Well, and I think you and I have both, we text each other or we communicate. That Cardinal Black video by Chris Buck was a really good video. He was honest and open about some of the finances, but it was interesting. Like they made a decision to invest 4 grand each, the three of them. So that's 12 grand as a start point, right?
Mm,
And back to your own fund. And like they had a plan, they had a plan and they had some seed corn, finance to start in. Not a lot of money in the scheme of
mm,
things. I know it's a lot of money to some people, but 12 grand in business is not a lot.
no.
And they're taking some huge risks now. I really hope it pays off for them because they're well, I haven't heard the band so much, but I know he's brilliant,
Yeah.
and they deserve it. They deserve it just for their honesty and everything else. Um, but I don't know where I was going with that, other than recommending people to watch that
Yeah.
because uh,
Success is not always what it looks like, is it?
no, 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 no. But also the lesson there is like even if you do it at a much smaller scale, even if you're gonna like if you're gonna go out and start doing open mics or start getting out like your students getting out and doing things, have some kind of plan, however flawed it is, and it won't follow the plan, but it'll get you thinking that way. And even and if in trying, even if it's just 200 quid, just try and have something to go, right, I'm going to put that aside to pay for me to risk going to this, taking a train somewhere or something. I don't know, just have some kind of plan and don't things don't happen and never did happen without investment of time, money, or some other resource. So it's that, and I'm giving mixed messages here. At one level, I'm going, oh, like don't put all your time into things that aren't working. But equally, if you can find some kind of funding, the other thing the people should do, I think we've had 30 grand out of the government for export or something over the years, is like fill out some forms
Mm.
for the PRS thing. Try and get some help. Because even if you don't get the help, the forms are designed, they make you think about what you actually might need and what your direction is going to be. So
Yeah,
that's another
really,
bit of it.
really, really good advice. Have some sort of strategy. It doesn't have to be, all encompassing or anything like that, but also recognizing what's going to make you happy and what your limitations are. Because I've had artists, sort of students, that they say, "Oh, look at this artist here. I want to replicate what they've done." And I've looked at it and gone, "But they've had huge investment." And they say,
Mm.
"Why? How can you tell?" X, Y, they've done 4 support tours on that, and they've done, and that you can't replicate that at the moment. So what can you do? So it's again trying to be a little bit more sort of realistic. I think people on Facebook are always going on about don't get rid of people's dreams, and I don't think anyone's trying to get rid of people's dreams. I think for your own mental health, they have to be based in reality, else it's going to be a nightmare for you.
Yeah, I think stop comparing, and there is almost like a inverse proportion. It's like it sounds cruel. I don't mean it to sound cruel, but I just want to kind of give it some perspective, maybe for some people. It's like if you haven't got anything, if you're a bit bang average, right? Yeah, I mean, without being unkind,
Yeah,
if if you haven't got talent or that amount of talent or that amount of creativity or natural authenticity, you're almost like if you want to make it, you've got to be good at business because that's your only avenue,
yeah,
right? You've got to be good at business and you've got to entertain, and you've got to find what it is that makes people want to book you on big stages and often that's by playing some quite lowest denominator type things, whether that's rock, like whether you've got to be crowd pleasing, you're not pleasing yourself. So it's almost like the more creative and the more artistic you are and the more authentic in that, the less appealing you're going to be in many respects, because those days where you were into Joni Mitchell and Tim Buckley and Jeff Buckley and those days are kind of gone. We're in a McDonald's type
yeah,
music culture, so in a way they have an advantage. They go, well, I'm not, maybe I'm okay. I can nick those 4 chords and I can nick that hook. I can right, and that works. I can get great musicians. I can get a producer. I can get writer. So everything is business driven, and
mm.
that's why they're succeeding. And good luck to them, right? But
Yeah,
it's like
absolutely.
that's their only pathway. So they
If it
find,
makes them happy,
well, also it's that's their pathway. They can't get that without following that pathway. So in a way, I'm not explaining it very well, but in a way,
no, you are,
it
you are.
empowers them to be good at to really focus on what they need to do. Whereas if you're an artist, you're always, I could go and play Underneath the River again. I'm so sick of that song. Oh, I'm going, I'm sick. You're less likely to compromise. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. And I think I can't count the number of times people have, and when I say people, I mean music industry people, have said to me and Steve, why don't you just write what they want?
Yeah, yeah.
Because there's no point in that.
No, which goes back to the point of like why are you in it? Like not you, but why is one in
Yeah,
it? And all of the above is legitimate. If you want to, somebody says to me they want to be fat. Okay, well, great. Well, this is what you need to. This is probably the pathway you need to do. Like,
absolutely.
yeah. But
Yeah.
anyway,
But yeah, so it's been great to chat to you, Mark. I mean, I was going to end it by saying what's your take, but you've already given it me. So,
I can't really predict the future. But all I'm hanging on to because also I'm like I'm of an age where I don't need to look too far ahead. But I think I think there's for those in our community, there are enough people or my age, and either 10 years either side, and or maybe 15 years either side, who there'll be enough people around. So it's not just a young person's world, because we are the majority, believe it or not.
Yeah.
And there's enough of us who still want music to be meaningful, who still want truth and beauty in music. And so we have to kind of ignore everyone else and try. Here comes the cat to say hello.
Hello.
We have to ignore that and really focus. We got to find our tribe, and our tribe are those people I've just talked about. So I think for 5-10 years, yeah, AI is going to come, but there's always going to be people who want fine dining from music, I think.
That's a really good take home. Thank you so much. There's always going to be people that want fine dining from music, and there's always going to be people that want McDonald's, and we're not
Good luck
dismissing
to 'em.
either of them.
No, and good luck to them. But they're apples and oranges. To use a terrible analogy. But you know what I mean? Don't compare. Don't confuse yourself by comparing. If you're doing that, don't worry about what. If you're in this lane, don't worry about the other lanes. You just don't worry about it. You'll end up being depressed, and literally, you're clinical depressed. So don't just step back, look at the reality of what you're trying to do compared with what other people are trying to do, and wish them luck. Wish everybody luck.
Absolutely. That's really great advice. Thank you so much, Mark. It's been so great speaking to you. Finally, after all the messages, emails, and all the rest of it, which have been great. So I really appreciate you talking to me.
Good. Well, good luck with all the keep doing what you're doing, because I always listen to the other people's, and the other thing is, like, yeah, I don't know. I certainly don't know all the answers, and it's just a point of view, and it's really great to hear other people's takes on all this stuff, and it's all, and these discussions need to be had. I think they really need to be had.
They do, because it's important for other artists to hear.
Yeah.
There's a truth out there, and they don't have to pretend, and they don't have to hide, and if they are depressed, there is other people that are probably in the same boat, and there is places and people that they can speak to, rather than them going down a road they probably shouldn't go down. So I really appreciate it. All right, thank you so much, Mark.
Well, have a good evening. I can take my sunglasses off now because the sun's gone in.
Mark, that was really interesting. Thank you so much. And it's great to have the perspective of someone who is not an artist. Do check him out on social media via the links in the show notes. And next week, I shall be returning to the artist's perspective by interviewing international touring artist Sorry Shaw. And thank you so much for listening and watching. And I'll see you next week.